A lot of people know that the Silk Road was one of the most influential trade routes ever, spanning from China all the way to the Mediterranean. But what exactly did it do? The Silk Road has much more to discover, and in this documentary, I will be exploring the impact of the Silk Road, from ancient China to modern society, and how it's a major turning point for the entire world. Let's jump in. This is Zhang Qian. He was the one who pioneered the Silk Road. Believe it or not, though, he wasn't originally tasked with establishing the Silk Road. At first, Emperor Wu, the ruler of the Chinese Han Dynasty at the time, wanted him to establish allies with Western countries to defeat the Huns together, who had been pestering China for forever. Notably, Rouzhi. In 177 BCE, the Huns attacked Rouzhi, assassinating their king. The Han leader celebrated this victory by drinking wine from the king's skull. When Emperor Wu heard that Rouzhi had this common enemy with them, he wanted to ally with Rouzhi to stop the Huns from attacking both them and China. So in 138 BC, Zhang Qian, along with the Han assistant Gan Fu, and about 100 people and carts, set off to Rouzhi. After a journey across treacherous terrain, navigating completely blindly, and even being captured by the Huns for over 10 years, Zhang Qian and his group successfully arrived at Rouzhi. They stayed there for a year before finally, after 13 years in total, with only Zhang Qian and Gan Fu living to tell the tale, were back in their home dynasty of Han. So, how was the journey? Well, the alliance failed, since Rouzhi had already moved far from the Huns and did not want to fight. But Zhang Qian's novel experiences there captivated Emperor Wu. So, in 119 BCE, he was dispatched again, with an even larger team of 300 warriors, 600 horses, and a lot of gifts. They set their sights on Wusun, and Dayuan, and India, and 33 more countries. They practically went through all of Central Asia. This time, they did not come back empty-handed. Many items were brought back to China in this expedition, including various foods like tomatoes, spinach, broad beans, pomegranate, garlic, grapes, alfalfa, and more. Wu Sun sent 50 of their best horses along with a diplomat back to Han, and they obtained Nisian horses, which they called heavenly horses, after fighting a war with Dayuan. These new, more powerful horses finally allowed China to defeat the Huns, a major feat in Chinese history. Furthermore, China was shown the traditions of Western countries, such as the Hellenistic culture spread by Alexander the Great, and recreational activities like magic, circuses, and swings. Eastern culture was also spread via monks traveling abroad to preach. With more diplomats being sent every year, a link between Eastern and Western culture was developing. But most importantly, this mission opened the Silk Road, opening new opportunities like trade between China and the West. This proved to be one of the most major turning points in all of Eurasian history, with its impact still being felt to this day. By just 106 BCE, the Silk Road had become firmly established, only about 10 years after Zhang Qian's second expedition. Words cannot describe how influential the Silk Road was. The world impacted China, and China impacted the world. Not only were items like silk traded, world-changing inventions were also spread. The traffic along this ancient superhighway significantly influenced numerous empires across centuries as well. But the most significant impact wasn't something physical. The spread and mixing of culture, especially religion, proved to be the most impactful thing at the end of the road. First, the stuff literally in the name, silk. It was far from the only item being traded. China could export their precious jade to other countries as well. The sales from jade and silk combined made China incredibly wealthy, especially since the Romans loved them. Similarly, Western countries could sell their gemstones, animal products, and foods to China. With the variety of products being sold along the road, even after the mystery of how silk was produced was cracked in the 5th century by the Byzantines, the road continued to prosper for another millennium. Next, the Silk Road spread revolutionary inventions. You use some of these inventions every day. 2 of China's 4 great inventions, paper, an item impossible to live without today, and the Chinese printing press, were spread via the Silk Road. Even irrigation tech the Chinese employed was spotted in Mesopotamia. Living back then, so many things you depended on only existed because of this Silky Way. As a result of the bustling trade and hustling innovations, empires across centuries were impacted by the Silk Road. Cities were constructed along the road, such as the Chinese city of Dunhuang. They allowed traders to restock and rest in caravanserais. At the same time, traders could bring novel products and diverse culture while adding local goods to their cargo while departing. This leads to the next effect. The diversity greatly boosted the economies of cities and, by extension, the empire. Local merchants profited from the new products, and local goods increased the traders' cargo value. Traders could also pay for protection by the empire, such as what the Parthian Empire offered. On the other hand, residents on the Aegean island of Kos took a different approach. They wove imported silk and sold it to the neighboring Romans, taking advantage of their love for it. Demand was so high, the whole island was swimming in money. And last, but actually most, the biggest impact of the Silk Road was the spread of culture. As mentioned, religion was especially influential. Many spread to China, including Christianity, Muslim, Islam, Zoroastrianism, Manichaeism, and Nestorianism. Among them, Zoroastrianism and Muslim were the most popular, with the former becoming a major part of Chinese religion for almost a millennium, and the latter dominating several provinces. But the religion that truly took China by storm was Buddhism. Buddhist books were translated, temples were constructed, as the poem Spring on the Southern River Shore described, 484 temples in the Southern Dynasty, so many standing in the mist and rain. Some emperors indulged in the religion so much they ignored their duties, completely changing Chinese history. Plus, with the vast influence of China, Buddhism also exploded in neighboring Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. And remember Dunhuang? That city was also Buddhist, having many monks and the Mo Gao grottos, a collection of Buddhist caves and temples. Speaking of Dunhuang, since it's the last Chinese-controlled city before the desert, poems of people bidding farewell to friends and family have been written there, such as the famous line from Wang Wei's sending Yuan Er on a mission to Anxi, "Please, friend, have one more toast, as there are no more friends west of Yangguan." This poem and Spring on the Southern River Shore are just 2 of many pieces of Chinese literature created because of the Silk Road's influence on China. Of course, it's not all rainbows and roses. Gunpowder was spread along the Silk Road, but instead of using it to make friendly fireworks like the Chinese did, it quickly became used for deadly warfare. Diseases like the Black Death also likely spread from Asia from the road. Unfortunately, the Silk Road's glory was abruptly ended by the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century. Despite the deadly difficulties the road brought, the impact of interconnected trade, inventions, and culture make the Silk Road go down in history as one of the most significant ancient superhighways ever. Many monuments along the Silk Road, like the Mo Gao grottos, still stand today as attractions, marking an important part of human culture. The Silk Road truly was a major turning point in history.